No one in Aetherra believed the prime sigils were real anymore. They were ancient relics from forgotten stories. The kind scholars argued about in dusty libraries, while the rest of the world moved on. Empires rose, cities grew, machines powered by rune energy lit the streets of Arlport every night. Magic had become predictable, controlled, safe, until the night the sky cracked. It started with a sound, low and distant like thunder rolling across the ocean. Then the stars above the city began to twist as if something massive was moving behind them. Arind Vale saw it first. From the highest balcony of the academy, he watched a glowing symbol appear in the clouds. A shape older than any language. A mark he had only seen once before in a forbidden archive sealed beneath the university. A prime sigil. The air around the city pulsed with raw magic. Lamps flickered. Hex engines stalled. Every rune device in Arlport screamed with energy before going dark. And far beyond the horizon, something answered the signal. Something ancient. Something that had been waiting since the beginning of the world. Arind felt the truth settle into his bones like ice. The prime sigils were not myths. They were waking up. And if even one of them fell into the wrong hands, the world of Aetherra would not survive what came next. By morning, the Academy of Arlport was in chaos. Scholars argued in crowded halls. Engineers ran tests on broken rune devices. Entire sections of the city's hex engines had failed during the strange event in the sky. For most people, it was just another unexplained magical disturbance. But Arind knew better. He had spent years studying forbidden records buried deep beneath the academy. Old texts written before the rise of modern kingdoms. Scrolls that spoke of a time when the world was nearly destroyed by artifacts called the prime sigils. Artifacts powerful enough to reshape continents. Artifacts that were supposed to be lost forever. Arind rushed through the underground archive and opened the oldest map he could find. His hands trembled as he compared the ancient markings to what he had seen in the sky. It matched. One of the sigils had awakened somewhere in the wild north, and that was impossible. The sigils were never meant to activate again. According to the ancient records, the last time they did, the result was a war so devastating that entire civilizations vanished from history. But something had changed. Someone or something had triggered them. Then Arind noticed something else in the archives. A symbol scratched into the corner of the map. One he had never seen before. A spiral shaped like an endless void. And beneath it, a warning written in faded ink. When the hollow stirs, the sigils answer. For the first time, Arind realized the truth. This wasn't an accident. Something from beyond their world had begun to move. Arind did not wait for permission. By the time the Academy Council finished arguing about the event in the sky, he had already packed his things and slipped out of Arlport before sunrise. No one believed the prime sigils were real. Not anymore. To them it was just another strange magical surge. But Arind had seen the symbol. And the map did not lie. The first sigil had awakened somewhere in the North Reach, a frozen wilderness far beyond the civilized kingdoms. A place of ancient ruins, wandering tribes and storms that could bury entire cities in ice. If the sigil was truly there, it would not stay hidden for long. Empires hunted power. And there was one empire in particular that would never ignore a weapon capable of reshaping the world. The Dominion of Varkesh. They had armies everywhere, which meant Arind was already late. After 3 days of travel, the shining towers of Arlport were nothing more than a memory behind him. The air grew colder. The roads disappeared. Snow covered the land like a white ocean, stretching to the horizon. Then one night, as he crossed an abandoned valley, the ground suddenly trembled. A pulse of blue light burst from the mountains ahead. The same symbol he saw in the sky burned across the clouds again. The prime sigil was close. But Arind was not the only one who felt it. From the dark edges of the valley, shadowy figures began to move. Soldiers. And something else behind them. Something that did not walk like any living creature of Aetherra. Arind's heart sank. The hollow had already arrived. The ruins of Frostfall Citadel stood half buried in the ice. Massive stone towers leaned against the mountain like broken teeth, their walls carved with symbols older than any known kingdom. Snow drifted through shattered archways as a cold blue glow pulsed from deep inside the fortress. Arind moved carefully across the frozen courtyard. Every step felt wrong, as if the ground itself remembered something terrible that once happened here. Then he saw it. At the center of the ruined hall, floating above a cracked stone altar, was the prime sigil. It looked alive. A spinning pattern of radiant lines and symbols glowing with power so intense that the air around it shimmered. Ancient energy rippled through the room like waves on water. For a moment Arind forgot to breathe. All his life he had studied myths about these relics. And now one was right in front of him. But he was not alone. A tall, armored figure stepped out of the shadows across the chamber. His armor bore the crimson crest of the Varkesh Dominion. General Kaler. One of the most feared commanders in the Empire. Behind him stood soldiers, and something worse. Creatures with twisted bodies and glowing hollow eyes, shapes that looked half-formed, like reality itself had failed while creating them. Hollow spawn. Kaler smiled as he looked at the sigil. You came all this way to study it, he said calmly. Unfortunately for you, scholar, I came to claim it. And the moment his soldiers moved forward, the sigil flared brighter, as if it knew the war had begun again. The moment the soldiers stepped forward, the entire citadel shook. The prime sigil exploded with light. A wave of raw energy burst across the chamber, throwing soldiers off their feet and sending cracks racing across the ancient stone floor. The glowing symbol spun faster, its power spiraling out of control, as if it could sense the battle forming around it. General Kaelor didn't flinch. Secure it, he ordered calmly. The Dominion soldiers rushed toward the altar shields, raised against the violent magic. Behind them, the hollow creatures moved in silence, their twisted shapes gliding across the floor like shadows come alive. Aaron knew he had seconds. If Kaelor captured the sigil, the Dominion would gain a weapon capable of leveling entire nations. But getting close to it felt like standing next to a storm made of pure magic. Still he ran. The energy burned against his skin as he reached the altar. Symbols carved into the stone suddenly ignited beneath his hands. Ancient runes began to glow, reacting to his presence. Then the sigil spoke. Not with words. With memories. Visions flashed through Aaron's mind, cities collapsing, oceans rising, armies turning to dust under impossible power. He saw the ancient war that had nearly erased the world, and he realized something terrifying. The prime sigils were not weapons. They were locks, and something beyond the world was trying to break them open. Behind him, Kaelor raised his blade. You're too late, scholar. The hollow creatures were already pouring into the chamber, and the sigil's power was beginning to spiral completely out of control. The chamber collapsed into chaos. Cracks spread across the floor like lightning as the prime sigil pulsed with unstable power. Chunks of ancient stone fell from the ceiling, smashing into the frozen ground below. Aaron staggered back from the altar. The visions still burned inside his mind. The sigils were never meant to be used. They were ancient seals holding something back, something far older than the kingdoms of Aetherra. And now one of them was breaking. General Kaelor stepped forward through the collapsing hall, untouched by the panic around him. Dominion soldiers tightened their formation while the hollow creatures spread across the chamber like living shadows. You see it now, Kaelor said calmly. The world was built on power like this. The Dominion will simply take what history abandoned. Aaron tried to reach the sigil again, but the energy pushed him back. The magic had become wild, unstable, impossible to control. It was too late. One of the hollow creatures suddenly lunged toward the altar. As it touched the swirling symbol, the sigil flared violently, and a rift tore open in the air above it. Darkness spilled out. Not empty darkness. Living darkness. Dozens of hollow creatures began emerging from the fracture in reality. Their shapes twisted as they crawled into the world drawn by the broken seal. The sigil dimmed. Its light flickered weakly as if it had already failed. Aaron fell to his knees. He had come here to stop a war. Instead, he had just witnessed the beginning of something far worse. Aaron stared at the fading prime sigil as the chamber filled with creatures from the hollow. Everything felt lost. The ancient seal was failing. The rift above the altar widened with every passing second, spilling more twisted shapes into the ruined citadel. Dominion soldiers began to retreat, as the situation slipped beyond anyone's control. Even General Kaelor's calm expression started to crack. This was never part of his plan. The hollow creatures were not obeying anyone. They moved wildly, attacking anything nearby. Stone walls shattered as their unnatural bodies pushed further into the world. Then the sigil pulsed again. A weak, trembling glow. Aaron noticed something in the ancient runes beneath the altar. Symbols carved deep into the stone were shifting, rearranging themselves like pieces of a puzzle. The sigil was reacting to him. Slowly the memory from the visions returned. The prime sigils were not weapons. They were anchors. Each one was connected to the others across the world, forming a massive web of magical balance. When one began to break, the others could stabilize it if someone activated the network correctly. Aaron understood now. He didn't need to control the sigil. He needed to complete the pattern. Ignoring the chaos around him, he stepped forward again and placed his hands on the glowing runes. The symbols responded instantly, spreading across the altar like streams of light. For the first time, the sigil stopped spiraling out of control. Behind him, Kaelor watched in stunned silence. The scholar was doing something impossible. And far above the citadel, across distant lands and hidden ruins, other ancient sigils began to awaken. The moment the runes aligned, the prime sigil exploded with light. A column of radiant energy shot through the broken roof of Frostfall Citadel and into the night sky. The beam stretched far beyond the mountains, reaching across the world of Aetherra. And the other sigils answered. From distant deserts, forgotten jungles, and hidden temples buried beneath the sea, ancient symbols began to awaken one by one. Their light formed a massive network across the sky, glowing like a constellation that had been sleeping for thousands of years. The hollow creatures screamed. The rift above the altar began to collapse, as the web of power pulled reality back into place. One by one, the monsters were dragged back into the darkness they came from. General Kaelor shielded his eyes as the chamber shook violently. "You fool," he shouted. You don't understand what you've done. But Aaron finally did. The prime sigils were never meant to remain dormant forever. They were part of the world's balance, ancient guardians holding back forces that should never cross into reality. And now the system was awake again. The final pulse of energy sealed the rift with a thunderous crack. Silence fell over the ruined citadel, as the last hollow creature vanished. The sigil slowly dimmed, hovering quietly above the altar once more. But something had changed. Across Aetherra, the other sigils were still glowing. The ancient network had been reactivated, which meant the world had just entered a new age of power, and every empire would soon come searching for it. Aaron looked up at the glowing sky and whispered one quiet realization. This was only the beginning. Comment 1 for the next part.